Welcome to the 2017 Andorra Ultra Trail Val Nor, a week-long festival of running that includes 6 different races around the mountainous principality of Andorra. 3 of them fall into the ultra category. All of them will get high into the Eastern Pyrenees, and between them they'll cover a high percentage of Andorra's 468 square kilometres, and of course soak up the atmosphere of Ordino, where all the events start and finish. Gerald Martinez is the man charged with ensuring this highly ambitious event runs smoothly. He says the main attraction of the 9th edition of the Andorra Ultra Trail is the Euphoria. It's a brutal race, 233 kilometres, 2,000 metres of climbing. But above all, it's a very technical race that allows all the runners to be on the ridges of our country. He says almost all the time you have a 360-degree view of the mountains. Well, there's definitely an air of excitement, but the briefing, as always, taken seriously. Routes, kit lists and markers, standard old-school orienteering markers used for this year's big event, the inaugural Euphoria. This is a race for teams of 2, and as we mentioned, 233 kilometres. That takes some thinking about, especially when you put in the 20,000 metres of climbing. 5 of those peaks they'll go over at over 2,900 metres. The hardest event last year was won by Nahul Passarat, a former goalkeeper now making a big name for himself in trail running. He won the 170k Ronda de Chim, and he's teamed up this year with Julian Marcillo to enter the Euphoria. It seems the longer, the harder, the more extreme the event, the greater the attraction. People like a challenge, and the Euphoria is certainly going to provide that.
I was here last year, hiking. I did the Comet Pedrosa Sky Race. I want to come back, do something 10 times worse. It's unlike anything I've done before, so it'll be new, yeah. Going up and down a lot of hills. That's all we're going to be doing. It's not a running race, it's a hiking race.
This is Sergi Benares, one of the runners, saying it's a new race. We just didn't want to miss it. We love the challenges, so we decided to give it a go. Certainly it's unknown. We know it's going to take a long time, many hours. We may spend 2 or 3 days out there, and whether we get any sleep is an unknown at the moment. So they get underway at 7 o'clock on the Wednesday morning. Everyone in the field has proved themselves over the last 2 years. They're all experienced enough to know that you need to take it easy in the early stages. The climbing starts almost immediately. They leave the town of Ordino. Well, this is our chance to have a look at the route, which will be taking them through the Comet Pedrosa and the Sorteny National Parks. 2 huge anti-clockwise loops to make up those 233 kilometres. But it's really the amount of climbing they do that is so shocking. 20,000 metres. Think of your local hill and work out just how many times you have to go up that to reach a tally of 20,000. The cut-off, 110 hours. The quickest expected to take 3 days. Day 1, and they head up their first big climb.
Claro, pues la progresión es lenta.
Oscar Plessin saying the procession's slow. There are actually very few places you can run, so it's a tough area, and certainly the first part of this course is harder than the rest. Certainly this is where they expect to suffer, but it will be a different sort of suffering when they get to the 3-day mark. Scenery is quite stunning. Gerard Martinez, the event director, saying that one of the characteristics of the race is that there aren't any refreshment points, only 4 life bases where they can rest, and they will have masseurs and doctors on hand there, but essentially they are looking after themselves for over 200 kilometres. This is Passerat and Marcelo approaching Arcades, having a good battle with the top Czech team out there on the hills. Not a lot between them at the moment, and Passerat with family support, as is often the case. This is the race headquarters run by Francesco. Basically says his job is to follow every single runner with the help of the chronometer and GPS that each of the teams carry. They have to ensure firstly that everyone's safe, and secondly that they all stay en route. Day 2 sees the Euphoria runners head through Coma Pedrosa National Park, one of the most stunning areas and one of the highest, up at around 3,000 meters. Very varied terrain, just over 70 kilometers done, and a long, long way to go. So important to stay focused on the difficult terrain. And even now, only 75 kilometers completed. Ivan Junien is one of the 300 volunteers involved in the event. He says when the runners get here, they still have some way to go to get to La Marginée, which is at the 100-kilometer mark. They've got some stamina left, but it's really important for them to hold back in these early stages, because this is such a tough part of the course. La Marginée, famous for its Roman bridge, one of the checkpoints. And this particular checkpoint run by Daniel Ginesta. The section between Arcales and La Margineda has become a bit of a long, hard trudge for the runners. Now, most of the teams starting to arrive at the first of the life bases, as they call them. Miguel Angel Aspiros says the worst part was definitely the first 50 kilometers. It was almost unrunnable. And today is now all about trying to survive after the battering of yesterday. I think many will be feeling the same way. Only 2 bag drops allowed on the course, where they can get fresh clothes, shoes, food, anything that they feel they might need. And this is where experience counts for a lot, knowing exactly what you might need on a race like this. Blisters are an obvious problem. Food, that's a little more difficult.
Right now I'm preparing drop bags for the race, so we have 2 stations where we can drop some baggage and pick it up in the middle of the race. So the first one is in yellow, Margineda, and the second one is Plaza de la Casa in green. So I'm just preparing some things that I think will be useful to have along the way. So sun cream, I don't want to carry it during the race, so I'm picking it up at the aid station. I've got some warmer clothes in case it's cold, more buffs, and also food. So I'm going to stock up on gels. I'm also going to have some freeze-dried food if I'm feeling hungry at the aid station and I'm not enjoying the food on the race. So I'm going to try this. Also have a few first aid things like Tiger Balm, some plaster and some tape if things are not going well. And that's it really, just preparing for the race. I think that tomorrow's going to be very difficult, but I'm just going to take it very easy and hope for the best and just try and enjoy Andorra, even though it will be difficult.
That surely is the best approach. And there are very few athletes here who've run these sort of distances, so for many it's an experiment. They'll all remember the views they see on the way round. Harriet Kiet appreciating the work that Joan Martinez put in, saying she can just imagine how much he enjoyed setting the course, thinking about the importance of what we see, but also about the suffering that we're going to go through. And she knows how much work, and thanks him for what he's done. We're back in Ordino, preparing for the start of just a slightly shorter race, the 170-kilometer Ronda del Cim.
I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, I'm excited to be here, and I can't wait to get in the mountains for a couple of days. we've been resting, and that's hard. So I'm excited to get out and see what the course is like today.
It will certainly be hard. She knows that. Lisa Bozzani, next door to her, knows even better. So experienced.
Penso sempre la cima di Coma Pedrosa.
I think she can't help thinking of Coma Pedrosa Peak, which has a really hard, steep technical slope, lots of stones, and it's very, very long. She knows a lot of energy is going to be used up on that particular part. Nicola Bassi is another of the competitors, expected to do well.
Sicuramente io quando parto cerco di dare.
He says at the start I always try and give everything I've got. I'll go steady without any expectations, trying to run my own race, listening to my own body rather than competing with the other athletes.
Cercherò di dare tutto quello che ho come sempre.
He just has to wait and see how it goes. So the Ronda del Team is underway, and this a non-stop 170 kilometers. Some very, very talented trail runners in the field. The competition early on will be stiff. Well, let's have a look at the route for the longest of the individual events. Remember, 6 different events organised throughout the week. Again, it's a big anti-clockwise loop. 13,500 metres of ascent involved in this course. 66 kilometres shorter than the Euphoria, 6,500 metres less, but you are on your own, and that makes a massive difference. One of the toughest tests in trail running, and in the early stages of the Ronda del Team, Vivian Reynaud is a man who is looking to take the victory. He set off very hard. Thibaut Clippé was just behind him, and then Pep Ballister, who's one of the great veterans of the sport, setting a good pace as well. Taking on fluid, absolutely essential. And with the race expected to last 30 hours or so, you can't take any shortcuts. Lisa Bozzani, the favourite, and leading the women's event, setting the pace ahead of Marina PLAVAN. And then not far behind PLAVAN is Japan's Kaori Niwa. And Niwa has not stopped smiling since the start, and I suspect we'll see her smiling when she goes back into Ordino. The Ronda del Team athletes are on the way up. The Euphoria runners are on their way down, only to have another 15 or so peaks to complete. This is a tough test. Welcome back to the Andorra Ultra Trail Val Nord. And we're with the leader of the men's race, Vivian Reynaud, who's looked very light on his feet. Antoine Guillon, who's the favourite for this particular 170-kilometre test, just slowly moving up the rankings. He's into second. Yannick Gordon now lying third. Nicola Bassi, who was third, dropping down the order a little. But with every stop, the order can change. In the women's race, Lisa Bozzani, clear favourite, clear leader. 7 big races already this year, but she hasn't had a win. It would be a refreshing change if she could get back to last year's winning ways. Nerea Martinez in second place, 2-time winner. She won in 2012 and 15, but didn't finish last year. Marina PLAVAN has dropped from second to third, still in the podium positions, as she holds a slim advantage over Japan's Kaori Niwa. The competition in the women's event much tougher than it was last year. We've also got an interesting situation in the men's Ronda del Team. That's the 170-kilometre individual race. As they reach the Col de la Patella, it is still Vivian Reynaud who leads, but he doesn't look quite as light on his feet as he was earlier on. Antoine Guillon, on the other hand, who won the Grand Raid in 2015, had a quiet 2016, but he's a hugely talented runner, and he's making ground, closing in on the race leader. Nicole Bassi third in 2016, lying third at the moment. And Pep Ballesta, who was fourth last year, is in fourth position here, just ahead of Yannick Gordon. Lisa Bazzani is the first woman to arrive at the next checkpoint. She's won the Torre de Jean, she's won the Long Tour de Quatre Massifs, she's won the Dolomiti Extreme, and is just ahead of Nerea Martinez, who seems to be having a few problems. She says she wants to exercise last year's ghosts. In this event, she was very frustrated, having fallen asleep in the shelter, and she knew she was in a good shape, but it was her head that had failed her. This year, she wants to reach her goal. Well, for many, that goal will just be to finish, and that certainly includes first-timers in the Mitic, which is 112 kilometers.
It's my first time in Andorra, and it's also my first time to walk through the night. So I'm very exciting, and it's a big challenge.
And the nighttime navigation in the hills is something that no runner forgets. The pace at the start of the Mitic, certainly a little faster than we've seen in either of the two longer distances. And again, they head north out of Ordino. A big anti-clockwise loop, using many of the tracks that the other two events will be using, through Sotony at the end and then back down south to Ordino to finish. 9,700 meters of climbing over that 112 kilometer distance. That is some race to choose for your first ever trail race. Nighttime start means that the pace early on, just a little slower than normal, but the tough times may well come when the body clock kicks in and objects at about 5 o'clock in the morning. The fourth event to get underway in Ordino is the Celeste Trail. 83 kilometers, just over 50 miles. Teixeira of Portugal and Mika-Pekka Rautanen of Finland, two of the men expected to do well.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. It's a nice start because it's in the night, so we can push the beginning quite hard since it's cold and see how we manage on the warmer side of the day.
So once again, a similar route to the previous three races, but the loop is that much smaller. Mikel Pesaro winning last year, 10 hours, 51 minutes. No reason to expect that the time will be much slower than that this year. The longest climb at 5.5 kilometers up the Col Jovel. Well, those who started the Euphoria, the longest event here, have been on the go for 3 full days, and Noel Passerat, Julia Marcello are on their way back to Ordino. It's been a mammoth effort for them. They're going to be under 69 hours, just 20,000 meters of climbing. That is 20 times up Snowdon, and the distance the equivalent of London to Cardiff.
Ha sido increíble.
Julian Mosillo saying it's been incredible. We're obviously delighted to win.
De ver rentabilizado el esfuerzo que
we feel we've been rewarded for the effort that we've put in. It's a brutal race. It's not easy. Second place going to Pavel Poloni and Filip Silar, who put up such a big battle from the Czech Republic. Only 4 hours behind the winners. And Josep Pera, Sergi Beneres, 73.14. They take third place, just ahead of Bevan and Eccles from Great Britain. The Marathon del Cim start. Well, they've seen the best runners in the Euphoria come into Ordino to finish their race, and now it is their turn. 42.5 kilometers, 3,000 meters of climbing. The best will take approximately 5 hours. Clean sweep for the Spanish in the men's event last year. Albert Pual winning in 4:31. Interesting to note that in just about all these events, only 50% of the competitors managed to finish. That is how tough it is. Nerea Martinez, unfortunately, one of those who had to pull out for the second year in succession. Prior to that, she was commenting on the landscapes, the tracks, the route, the mountains, saying this is a pure mountain race. If you like the mountains, you have to do it. She, of course, won back in 2015. Another winner, but in 2017, is Armando Teixeira, who was competing in the Celestrail. So the whole race is beautiful, brutal, fantastic. Every single segment is different. And he loved the whole of the course. And I'm sure his feelings made all the stronger by the fact that he was the winner of the Celestrail this year. 10 hours, 55 minutes. Marta Escudero getting the win in the women's. In the Marathon del Cim, 42.5 kilometers, Roberto Garcia and Quiralriba, the champions. The Mitic titles going to Sebas Sanchez and Ida Fornell. The Ronda del Cim, 170 kilometers, and Antoine Guillon, the favourite, coming through in the end to win in 31:05, ahead of Pep Ballester and Yannick Gordon. Lisa Borzani, unsurprisingly, taking the win in the women's. She'll be delighted to be back to winning ways. Kaori Niwa, a fantastic second place, 40 hours, 42 minutes. And Marina PLAVAN fought her way back into the podium positions, 42:16. Pep Ballester, a regular at this event, says it's been tough, it's always tough. This is the 4th year that I've done this race. I haven't trained quite as much as usual. I produced the same time as in the past, but finished second. Lisa Borsani had problems with her stomach overnight, so had to take the last 50 kilometers steady, but delighted to take the win. Well, what an occasion, what a week, and some very, very impressive performances. The final race taking place on the Sunday, called the Solidarity Trail. Lydia Martinez explaining that this race aims to give everyone the opportunity to participate and open up the mountains and the sport to people who normally are not involved in this sort of thing. And what's so impressive is that many of the elite runners who've been through hell and back over the last 3 or 4 days have hung around to accompany those who find it a whole lot harder to get into the mountains. Great spirit at the end of a unique festival of running. Thousands of runners have shown us what is physically possible. But it's Andorra and the generosity of its people that's enabled many to achieve their dreams.